I was born in Boston in 1950. My parents were working-class Italian Americans, neither of whom had graduated high school. My brother's education was more important than mine. He went to Catholic schools, and I went to the public schools. The expectation for me was to marry and have children. In high school, I received the Outstanding Scholar Athlete Award, a small plaque, no promises of scholarships. I also received the Americanization Award from the VFW, an award given to a student who displays leadership, scholarship, and character. I was an all-American girl, and yet I felt trapped and had no idea how I would escape the path laid out for me. And then it happened. The women's movement saved my life.
I've got some unfinished business, oh, I just want to say, unfinished business to take care of today. Oh, well, I know it's on my mind, and I think that it's time to tell the unfinished business that we left behind. Oh, well, they'll tell you it's unnatural, they'll try to make you scared.
Women's rights was the rallying call of a small group of 19th century women. It took 80 years of struggle for women to finally win the right to vote. In the early 20th century, the term feminism was coined to describe women's broadening demands for citizenship as well as economic and sexual rights. This new mobilization, called the second wave of feminism, expanded the imagination and broadened the social possibilities for women from all classes and races all over the U.S. Social changes in its wake profoundly affected the last quarter of the 20th century.
Through our shackles now we sing a battle song. We march for liberation and we're many thousands strong. Yay! We'll build a new society. We've waited much too long. Now we are marching on.
How these men are really like different from that kind of situation, which I was married, definitely had one relationship with this one man, and then the other people were sort of visitors. Now we all live together and we all have to share all the work and everything, but the shocking part to me was like how the men were really unable to take care of the simplest survival skills, and we had to teach them everything, like how to cut up garlic, you know. I mean, just the simplest kinds of cooking things.
We really did deal with the question of what is it we want to change? How do we want to change ourselves? What are the questions we have to ask ourselves? What is our relationship to the men in our lives?
I had been a dyke my whole life, but a lot of women were coming out, and a lot of us got together. So they decided to split off and start our own little paper. We called it Lavender Vision. And I remember the first paper, the front page said, "Diesel Chickies Unite, it's just a kiss away." It was like really, it was fun.
We are a community that creates our own way of making love, our own way of fighting, our own way of making a revolution that is not just on walls and in leaflets, but in our daily lives.
Well, they've got women on TV and still ain't satisfied, 'cause co-optation's all the scene and still ain't satisfied. They call me Ms. They sell me blue jeans called Women's Lib. They make it sound obscene and it still ain't, oh, they lie.
We had been meeting for a while, and again, the spirit of the time, I think, is hard to have some sense of now, when there's a sense of not so much visibility of women and the women's movement. But women were coming out of the woodwork.
But that's the reason that it was so great to have a collective, because then you weren't just alone in your studio having people come and, you know, and use your facilities. It's like we knew that it was important, it was changing our lives, and it was important to us, and it just opened up, you know, all this imagery to explore. And
we were very depressed about what was going on in the world and stuff like that. And we started saying, you know, what we need is a place where that concentrates all this information that's coming out about women, and a place that one can go and feel safe.
we were getting lots and lots of women, black women, coming from all across the city to our organization to become part of the consciousness raising groups that we were running, to become part of the collective. At one point, we had between 50 and 100 women at the Women's Center meeting there weekly to talk about issues that are important to black women.
And we said, we have to deal with pornography, we have to deal with domestic violence against women, we have to deal with rape on the street, but also we talked about acquaintance rape,
right,
which was probably one of the first times it was being talked about.
Right,
we
rape
talked
within
about
marriage as well.
Right. We talked about criminalization of prostitution as an issue of violence against women.
Women in prison.
We talked about women in prison, and so we covered all of those different issues.
Reproductive violence, because we were also
That's
talking about
sterilization.
sterilization abuse
and sexual harassment at the workplace.